The briefing room aboard the Coalition flagship was massive. Captain Han Mirai stood among representatives from 12 different alien species, trying not to show how nervous she felt. The ceiling stretched high above her head, built for creatures much larger than humans. Everything here made her feel small. She wore her Earth military uniform with pride, even though she knew what the aliens thought of her species. Humans were the newcomers, the weak ones, the species that had barely learned to travel between stars while others had been doing it for thousands of years. Colonel Ventar entered the room, and everyone fell silent. He was Drukai, one of the apex predator species in the galaxy. He stood nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms covered in natural armor plating that looked like black steel. His eyes were dark and cold, scanning the room like a hunter examining prey. Mirai had done her research. The Drukai came from a world with gravity more than twice Earth's. They evolved as pack hunters on a planet where everything wanted to kill everything else. They were fast, strong, and nearly impossible to hurt. For 5,000 years, they had dominated the Coalition's military forces. The ceremony began. One by one, representatives from each species stepped forward to join the Apex Guard training program. Mirai watched as creatures of incredible size and power took their places. There was a Saloth, a serpent-like being with scales that could deflect laser fire. A Thex warrior whose armored hide had evolved to withstand their world's acidic rain. A Krell whose 6 limbs could tear through solid metal. Then it was Earth's turn. Commodore Park Ji-hoon stood beside her. He was her commanding officer and the head of Earth's delegation to the Coalition. He had warned her this would not be easy. He had told her to keep her mouth shut and let her actions speak. Earth sends Captain Han Mirai. Park announced in the common tongue that the translation implants made everyone understand. Mirai stepped forward. She stood 165 centimeters tall. She weighed 60 kilograms. Compared to the beings around her, she looked like a child. Colonel Ventar stared at her for a long moment. Then he made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter, though it sounded like metal scraping on stone. "This is what Earth sends?" His voice dripped with contempt. "I have seen Drukai hatchlings with more muscle. Look at her. No natural armor, no claws, no venom. Her bones would snap like twigs under Drumeth Prime's gravity." The other species murmured their agreement. Mirai felt heat rising to her face, but she kept her expression neutral. She had expected this. Ventar circled her slowly, examining her from every angle. Her flesh is soft. Her reflexes are slow. She has no enhanced senses. What evolutionary advantage does this species possess? Curiosity? That will not save her when she faces a Vrax in combat. One of the other trainees, a young Drukai named Corton, clicked his mandibles in amusement. "Colonel, surely this is an insult to the program. The Apex Guard is for warriors, not scientists. Perhaps the human would be better suited to a research division." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Mirai's hands clenched into fists at her sides, but she remained silent. Park had been right. Words would not convince them. Ventar raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "However, the Council has mandated full integration of all member species. If Earth wishes to send this fragile creature to our training program, we will accept her." He leaned down until his face was level with Mirai's. She could smell sulfur on his breath. "You will join the current cohort of Apex Guard candidates. There are 12 others, all from proven warrior species. The training lasts 6 months on Drumeth Prime. Only 1 in 10,000 candidates completes it." Mirai met his gaze without flinching. "I understand, Colonel." "I do not think you do," Ventar said quietly. "The training will break your body. The gravity alone will crush you. The heat will cook you. The native predators will see you as the weakest prey available, and your fellow trainees will not help you. They will watch you fail, because your failure proves what they already know. Humans do not belong among warriors." "I will not fail," Mirai said. Bold words from such a small creature. Ventar straightened to his full height. "When you fail, and you will fail, perhaps Earth will send actual warriors instead of children. You have 48 hours before transport to Drumeth Prime. Dismissed." The ceremony ended. As the other species filed out, several of them glanced at Mirai with what she recognized as pity. They expected her to die. Some of them probably hoped she would, just to prove the point that humans were too weak for this galaxy. Park waited until they were alone in the corridor. "You handled that well." "He called me a child," Mirai said through gritted teeth. He called you worse than that in his own language. The translator was being polite. Park's expression was serious. Mirai, you can still withdraw. No one would blame you. This program has a mortality rate of 70%. Most species send their absolute best and they still die. That is exactly why I cannot withdraw, Mirai said. If I quit now, Earth will never be taken seriously. Every human who comes after me will face the same contempt. I have to do this. Park nodded slowly. Then use the next 48 hours wisely. Study everything you can about Drumath Prime. Learn about the other species in your cohort. Find their weaknesses. Their weaknesses? Sir, they are all apex predators. What weaknesses could they possibly have? Everyone has weaknesses, Park said. The Drukai are strong and fast, but they rely on those advantages. They do not think creatively because they have never had to. The Seloth have incredible reflexes, but they are cold-blooded. Temperature affects them. The Theks are nearly indestructible, but they are slow to adapt. Understanding dawned on Mirai. And humans? Humans are weak by their standards, Park said. But we are also the only species that evolved as persistence hunters. We are the only ones who heal from almost any injury that does not immediately kill us. We are the only ones who refuse to quit even when quitting is the logical choice. He put a hand on her shoulder. You will not beat them with strength or speed. But you can outlast them. You can outthink them. And you can make them watch as the fragile human refuses to break. Mirai spent the next 2 days in the ship's data archives. She studied Drumath Prime's environment, memorizing temperature ranges, atmospheric composition, and gravitational force. She learned about the planet's megafauna, especially the Vraks that Ventar had mentioned, 12-meter-long pack hunters with acid blood and hides tough enough to resist most weapons. She studied the anatomy of every species in her cohort. Weak points, nerve clusters, anything that might give her an advantage, and she trained. She pushed her body to its limits in the gym, knowing it would not be enough, but doing it anyway. She practiced falling because she knew she would fall a lot. She practiced getting back up because that was the only thing that mattered. On the morning of departure, Ventar was waiting at the transport ship. He looked at her with those cold, dark eyes. Last chance to quit, human. Mirai walked past him onto the ship. See you on Drumath Prime, Colonel. As the ship pulled away from the flagship, Mirai looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was watching. Her family, her friends. Everyone who had believed she could do this. She would not let them down, even if it killed her. Drumath Prime hit Mirai like a hammer. The transport ship landed at the training complex, and when the doors opened, the heat rolled in like a physical thing. 45 degrees Celsius. The air smelled of sulfur and something else, something organic and rotten. Mirai's eyes watered immediately. She stepped out onto the landing platform wearing the standard gravity compensation suit that all low-gravity species received. The suit used technology to counteract 75% of Drumath Prime's crushing gravity, making it bearable for species from lighter worlds. Colonel Ventar was waiting. He looked comfortable in the heat and gravity, of course. This was his home world. Welcome to Drumath Prime, he said. Then he reached out with one of his 4 hands and pressed something on her suit's control panel. The compensation shut off. The gravity slammed down on Mirai like a giant hand pressing her into the ground. Her knees buckled, her spine compressed. She fell forward onto her hands, gasping for air that suddenly seemed too heavy to breathe. Around her, the other trainees watched. They stood easily in the gravity that was crushing her. A few of them made sounds that the translator did not bother to interpret. Laughter, probably. You wish to join the Apex Guard? Ventar's voice came from above her. You will adapt as we did, or you will break. There are no compensation suits in combat. Stand up, human, Mirai tried. Her arms shook. Her legs felt like they weighed 1,000 kilograms each. Blood pounded in her ears. She got one foot under her, then the other. Slowly, agonizingly, she pushed herself upright. Her vision went dark around the edges. Blood vessels burst in her eyes from the pressure. But she stood. Good, Ventar said. Now run. The first week nearly destroyed her. Every morning began with a 50-kilometer run across volcanic terrain. The ground was black glass, sharp enough to cut through boots. The air burned her lungs. The gravity made every step feel like she was carrying another person on her back. The Drukai completed the run in 2 hours, their 4 legs eating up the distance with ease. The Seloth took 3 hours, moving in that strange serpentine way that let them flow over obstacles. Even the slowest of the other species finished in 4 hours. Mirai took 6. She stumbled into camp long after dark, her uniform shredded, her body covered in cuts from the volcanic glass. Every muscle screamed. Her feet were bleeding inside her boots. She collapsed next to the water station and drank until she thought she might vomit. Cortan, the young Drukai who had mocked her at the ceremony, stood nearby. "You should quit, human. This is only the first day. It gets harder." Mirai did not have the energy to respond. She just drank more water. The training was designed to break bodies. After the morning run came climbing exercises, sheer cliff faces with no safety equipment. You used your natural grip strength or you fell. Mirai's human hands were not designed for this. She fell more times than she could count, hitting the ground hard enough to knock the wind from her lungs, but she climbed back up, every time. In the afternoons they hunted. No modern weapons allowed, only primitive spears and knives. They had to catch and kill their own food from the native wildlife. The first time Mirai saw a Drumath prime predator, a creature like a 6-legged wolf with razor-sharp scales, she understood why Ventar had called her fragile. She did not catch anything the first week. She ate only what she could scavenge from the others' kills. Some of them shared grudgingly. Most did not. By the end of week 1, Mirai had lost 5 kilograms. Her body was a map of bruises and cuts. She could barely walk without limping. Ventar watched her from his observation post. "She has determination," he told his assistant. "But determination without strength is merely prolonged suffering. She will break by week 3. But something strange happened in week 2. Mirai's cuts began healing faster than they should. The deep gashes that should have taken weeks to close were sealing in days. The bruises that should have lasted for weeks faded in a matter of days. Her body, though weak, was recovering at a rate that puzzled the alien observers. By the end of week 2, she completed the run in 5.5 hours, still far behind the others but improving. Week 3, 5 hours. The other trainees noticed. Gordon approached her during a rest period, his mandibles clicking with confusion. "What enhancements do you use, human? What drugs make you heal so quickly?" Mirai was too tired to be diplomatic. "No enhancements, no drugs. This is just what humans do. That is not possible. Your species file says humans have normal healing rates." "Normal for a species that evolved being the weakest predator on our planet," Mirai said. "Everything on Earth was stronger than us, faster than us, had better weapons than us. So we evolved to survive anyway. We heal, we endure, we do not quit." Corton did not look convinced, but he left her alone. The truth was more complicated. Humans did heal faster than most species, but not because of any special ability. They healed faster because human evolution had been shaped by constant injury. Early humans who could not recover from wounds died. Those who could recover passed on their genes. Generation after generation, selection pressure favored the humans who could take damage and keep going. It was not enhancement. It was just survival of the most stubborn. By week 4, the training shifted to combat. Trainees were paired against each other in unarmed fighting. The rules were simple. Fight until one of you cannot continue. If you kill your opponent, you are executed. Everything else was allowed. Mirai's first opponent was Sirath, a Saloth whose reflexes were 3 times faster than human normal. The fight lasted 8 seconds. Sirath moved like lightning, her serpentine body coiling and striking before Mirai could react. The impact threw Mirai across the training arena. She hit the wall hard enough to dislocate her shoulder. Pain exploded through her arm. Mirai screamed. Ventar's voice came over the arena speakers. Combat ended. "The Saloth wins. Human, report to medical." Mirai stayed on the ground, breathing hard. Her shoulder was a ball of agony. She could see it hanging at the wrong angle. She had watched videos about this, knew what to do. She braced her feet against the wall, gripped her dislocated arm with her good hand and pulled. The shoulder popped back into socket with a sound like a gunshot. Mirai's vision went white. She vomited from the pain, then she stood up. "Again," she said. Silence filled the arena. Ventar's voice came back, puzzled. "You need medical attention." "I need to fight again," Mirai said. Her arm was on fire, but it was back in socket. It would work well enough. "That is the training, yes? We fight until we learn?" The second bout lasted 20 seconds. Mirai was ready for Sirath's speed this time. She still lost, but she managed to dodge 1 strike. The third bout lasted almost a minute. Over the next 2 weeks, Mirai fought every member of the cohort. She lost every single match. But each time she lasted a little longer. She learned their patterns, studied their movements. Humans were not fast, but they were intelligent. They could learn. Corton shattered 3 of her ribs in their second fight. The medic wanted to put her in recovery for 2 weeks. Mirai gave it 3 days, then returned to training. It hurt to breathe, but she could breathe. That was enough. Grumkor, a Thex warrior built like a tank, broke her left arm. The bone snapped clean through. 2 weeks later, Mirai was back in the arena. The aliens whispered among themselves. This was not normal. Humans were not supposed to heal this fast. They were not supposed to keep fighting with injuries that would sideline other species for months. What they did not understand was human baseline. Humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them constantly. Infection, injury, predators, disease. Humans who could not survive all of that died out. The ones who remained were the ones who could take horrific damage and keep going. A human who did not die from a wound would probably survive it. And a human who survived would be back to fighting faster than any other species expected. Ventar reviewed the training footage each night. He watched Mirai fall and get back up. Watched her lose fights and demand rematches. Watched her body break and heal and break again. He accessed Earth's historical database. Read about human wars that lasted years, sometimes decades. About soldiers who fought with injuries that should have killed them. About humans who survived conditions that would shatter any other species' will to live. They do not know when to quit, he said to his assistant. They should quit. Logic demands it, but they do not. In week 8, Mirai won her first fight. Her opponent was Kalrun, a mid-tier Thex warrior. He was stronger than her, tougher than her, better armored. But he was also used to fights ending quickly one way or another. Mirai made the fight last. She dodged. She retreated. She took hits that would have knocked out a normal human and kept moving. She made Kalrun chase her around the arena, made him waste energy, made him frustrated. 20 minutes into the fight, Kalrun was breathing hard. 30 minutes, he was slowing down. At 45 minutes, his movements became sloppy. Mirai was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Her left eye was swollen shut. But she was still moving. At 50 minutes, Kalrun collapsed from exhaustion. Mirai remained standing. The arena fell silent. Then slowly, a few of the trainees began making sounds of approval. Not respect, not yet, but acknowledgement the frail human had won. The second phase of Apex Guard training began on the first day of week 9. Colonel Ventar gathered the remaining trainees in the briefing area. 2 had already quit. 1 had died from infected wounds. 9 remained, including Mirai. You have proven you can survive basic training, Ventar announced. Now you will prove you can survive Drumeth Prime itself. For the next 30 days you will be alone in the wilderness. No supplies. No communication devices. No weapons except what you make yourself. He activated a holographic display showing a vast jungle region. The trees looked wrong, twisted and dark. The terrain was broken and dangerous. This is the Burning Valley. It contains every predator species native to Drumeth Prime, including the Vrax. Ventar's mandibles clicked. To pass this phase, you must return to this facility in 30 days with proof of your survival. That proof is a Vrax tooth. Mirai had researched the Vrax extensively. They were apex predators 12 meters long with acid blood and scales harder than most metals. They hunted in packs and could track prey across hundreds of kilometers. A single Vrax could kill a fully armed Drukai warrior, and Mirai was supposed to take a tooth from one. You will be dropped at separate locations, Ventar continued. If you encounter another trainee, you may cooperate or compete. That choice is yours. The extraction ships will return in exactly 30 days. If you are not at the retrieval point, you will be left behind. Corton raised one of his forearms. And if we cannot obtain a Vrax tooth, then you have failed. You will not become Apex Guard. Ventar looked at each of them in turn. 60% of trainees die during this phase. The Vrax kill most of them. The environment kills the rest. If you are not completely certain you can do this, withdraw now. Nobody moved. Good. You deploy at dawn. The transport dropped Mirai in the deepest part of the Burning Valley just as the sun rose over Drumeth Prime. The heat was worse here, pushing 50 degrees even in the morning. The air was thick with moisture and the smell of rot. The transport lifted off, leaving her completely alone. Mirai took stock of her situation. She wore only basic training clothes. No tools, no weapons, no food or water. She had 30 days to find a Vrax, kill it or incapacitate it somehow, take one of its teeth and make it to the extraction point 200 kilometers away. The smart thing would be to panic. Instead, Mirai started walking. She did not try to fight the environment. That was what the other species would do. They would use their natural advantages to overcome obstacles. But Mirai did not have natural advantages. She had something else. She had intelligence. Humans were tool users, pattern recognizers, the species that looked at fire and thought, I can use that, instead of running away. So Mirai observed everything. She watched which plants the local insects avoided. Those were probably toxic. She noted which ones they swarmed to. Those might be edible or useful. She tested water sources carefully, taking only small sips and waiting to see if her stomach rebelled. She tracked the movements of the smaller predators, learning their patterns, where they hunted, where they avoided. A place predators avoided might contain something even more dangerous, but it also might contain resources. On the second day, she found a stream. The water was sulfurous but drinkable. She followed it upstream and discovered a cave behind a small waterfall. Good shelter, defensible. She made camp there. On the third day, she made her first tool. A sharp rock lashed to a stick with vines she had tested for strength. Primitive but functional. It was not much against a Vrax, but it was better than nothing. She spent a week learning to survive. Found plants that were edible barely. Caught a small lizard-like creature and cooked it over a fire she made using friction and dry moss. The meat was tough and tasted like chemicals, but it was protein. She made more tools, better spears, a knife from volcanic glass, rope from braided vines. Humans might be weak, but they were excellent at making things that made them less weak. On day 8, she found her first Vrax track. The print was enormous, pressed deep into the muddy ground near the stream. Three-toed with claw marks that suggested the creature weighed several tons. The track was fresh, maybe an hour old. Mirai's heart hammered in her chest. She was not ready to fight a Vrax. She would never be ready. But she did not have to fight it. She had to outthink it. She followed the tracks carefully, staying downwind. The Vrax had excellent senses. If it caught her scent, it would hunt her. But humans had learned to hunt creatures much more dangerous than themselves. They did it with patience and planning. The tracks led to a feeding site. The Vrax had killed something large, torn it apart, and eaten most of it. Mirai examined the scene carefully. She noted the direction the Vrax had gone afterward. Noted the time of day. She came back the next day at the same time. No Vrax, but fresh tracks leading to a different location. The third day, she found a pattern. The Vrax was solitary, an old male judging by the size. It fed in the cooler hours of morning and evening. During the heat of midday, it rested in the shade. Mirai spent 3 more days tracking it, learning everything about it. She discovered it had a slight limp in its right rear leg, an old injury that had healed badly. The Vrax compensated for it well, but the weakness was there. She found where it liked to rest, a ravine with steep sides, shaded by the twisted trees. Good defensive position for the Vrax. It could see anything approaching, but it also had a weakness. At the bottom of the ravine, Mirai noticed something. A sulfurous smell, stronger than usual. She investigated carefully and found vents in the ground, releasing toxic gases. The heavier-than-air gases pooled in the ravine during the night when temperatures dropped. An idea formed. She spent the next 2 days preparing. She gathered rocks and positioned them at the top of the ravine. She studied the wind patterns, learning when the gases would be strongest. She made a crude mask from cloth and carbon-rich wood, hoping it would filter enough of the toxic air to let her breathe. On the 15th day, everything was ready. She waited until evening when the Vrax returned to its ravine to rest. She watched it settle into its usual spot, that massive body relaxing as it prepared to sleep. Then she triggered the rock slide. The rocks did not hurt the Vrax. Its scales were too thick, its body too massive. But the rock slide blocked the ravine exits, trapping the creature in the narrow space. The Vrax roared, a sound that shook the ground. It tried to climb out, but the sides were too steep and its injured leg could not find purchase. As night fell, the temperature dropped. The toxic gases began pooling in the ravine. Mirai watched from above, her improvised mask tied across her face. She felt sick doing this. It was not a fair fight. It was not honorable. But survival was not about honor. The Vrax's roars became weaker. It thrashed, trying to escape, but the gases were heavier than air. They filled the ravine like invisible water, suffocating the great predator. 20 minutes later, the wrack stopped moving. Mireille waited another hour to be sure. Then she carefully climbed down, her mask still in place. The gases were dissipating as the temperature rose slightly, but they were still dangerous. She approached the wracks carefully, spear ready. But the creature was dead. It took her 2 hours to extract a tooth using her volcanic glass knife. The tooth was as long as her forearm, curved and sharp. Proof she had killed a Varax. She climbed out of the ravine and walked away. Behind her, smaller scavengers were already moving in to feed on the Vrax's body. Nature wasted nothing on Drumeth Prime. Mireille had 15 days to reach the extraction point. 200 kilometers through hostile jungle. She started walking. On day 20, she heard fighting. She found Corton in a clearing, surrounded by 3 smaller predators. He was wounded, one of his forearms hanging useless at his side. His armor was torn. He was losing. Mireille could have walked away. Corton had mocked her, had called her weak, had made it clear he thought humans did not belong here, but she did not walk away. She charged into the fight, her spear taking one of the predators in the eye. It screamed and fled. The others turned on her, seeing easier prey. Corton used the distraction to kill one. Mireille dodged the third, leading it away from Corton and into a trap she had noticed. A patch of ground that looked solid but was actually thin crust over a pit. The predator fell through. Its screams faded into the darkness below. Corton collapsed against a tree, breathing hard. His wound was infected, green pus leaking from it. He was dying. "Why did you help me?" he asked, his translator barely working. "Because you are my brother now," Mireille said simply. She examined his wound. Bad but treatable if she used the medicinal plants she had discovered. For 3 days she kept Corton alive. She treated his infection with plant poultices that she had tested on her own cuts. She shared her water and the small amount of food she had. She stood watch while he slept, keeping other predators away. On the 4th day, Corton could walk again. "You saved my life," he said. "I do not understand why. I showed you only contempt." "Did you have a Vrax tooth?" Mireille asked. Corton clicked his mandibles in shame. "No, I tracked one for days but could not kill it." "I am a failure." "No," Mireille said. She reached into her pack and pulled out the tooth she had taken. It was huge and heavy. She broke it in half using a rock. The tooth was solid through, so each half had the distinctive shape. She handed one half to Corton. "Now we both have proof." 7 trainees remained after the burning valley. 2 had not returned at all, their bodies claimed by Drumeth Prime's wilderness. Mireille, Corton, Sirath the Saloth, Grumcor the Thex, and 3 others stood in the briefing room, exhausted but alive. Colonel Ventar looked at them with something that might have been respect. Or maybe just surprise that so many had survived. "You have completed 12 weeks of training," he said. "You have proven your bodies can endure. You have proven you can survive in the wild. But the Apex Guard requires more than physical strength and survival skills. It requires absolute mental fortitude." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The final trial begins tomorrow. This trial is classified. Even within the Coalition military, few know its true nature. I can tell you only this. Trainees who fail this trial do not return." Silence filled the room. Mireille felt cold despite the planet's heat. Do not return could mean many things, none of them good. "You have tonight to prepare yourselves," Ventar continued. "Eat well. Rest. Make peace with whatever gods your species believes in. Tomorrow you will face the ultimate test of the Apex Guard." That night, Mireille could not sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything she had endured. The crushing gravity, the brutal training, the hunt in the wilderness, and now something worse waited. Corton found her in the mess hall at midnight, drinking water and trying to calm her nerves. "You cannot sleep either?" he asked, settling his massive body onto a bench designed for Drukai anatomy. "No," Mireille admitted. "I keep thinking about what he said. Trainees who fail do not return. What does that mean?" Corton's mandibles clicked softly. "I have heard rumors. Whispers among the older warriors. They say the final trial involves a battle titan. What is that?" "A Drukai who has been enhanced for war. Stimulants, genetic modification, psychological conditioning. They are made into perfect killing machines, but the process drives them insane. They cannot be controlled." Corton's 4 eyes looked haunted. They say the Coalition keeps them for this purpose only. To test the Apex Guard candidates. They want us to fight an insane enhanced Drukai? Mirai's voice rose. That is suicide. Yes, Corton agreed. But it is also the final test. If we can survive that, we can survive anything. The next morning, they were led into a facility deep underground. The walls were thick metal, heavily reinforced. Armed guards stood at every checkpoint. Whatever waited below was dangerous enough to require serious containment. They descended for what felt like an hour. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. The space was circular, perhaps 50 meters across, with walls that looked designed to withstand explosions. Observation windows ringed the upper level, protected by thick, transparent alloy. In the center of the chamber was a cage, and inside the cage was a nightmare. The battle titan stood 4 meters tall, twice the size of a normal Drukai. It had 8 arms instead of 4, each one thick with muscle and tipped with claws like swords. Its armor plating had been enhanced, making it look like a living tank. But its eyes were the worst part. Wild, maddened, completely void of reason or mercy. It paced inside the cage, smashing its fists against the bars hard enough to make the metal ring like a bell. Ventar's voice came over speakers. You see before you a Drukai battle titan. It was once a warrior named Thakvar. Now it is only hunger and rage. The stimulants make it 3 times stronger than a normal Drukai, 3 times faster, and it feels no pain. The 7 trainees stared at the creature in horror. Your final trial is simple, Ventar continued. Survive for 1 hour while it hunts you. The cage will open when the trial begins. There are no weapons, no tools. You have only yourselves and each other. This is insane, Grumcor rumbled. That thing will kill us all in minutes. Perhaps, Ventar said. But if you cannot survive this, you cannot call yourselves Apex Guard. The choice is yours. Enter the chamber and face the trial, or withdraw and admit you are not strong enough. Mirai looked at the battle titan, looked at its enormous size, its terrible weapons, its mindless rage. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was suicide. But she thought about Earth, about the people watching and waiting to see if humans could stand among the galaxy's warriors. About every person who had said humans were too weak, too fragile, too soft. She walked into the chamber, one by one. The others followed. The cage door opened. The battle titan exploded out of the cage like a missile. It moved impossibly fast for something so large, crossing the chamber in 3 enormous strides. It caught Grumcor first. The Thex warrior tried to dodge, but the titan was too fast. 8 arms seized Grumcor and simply tore him apart. His armor, designed to withstand acid and extreme pressure, crumpled like paper. His screams lasted 3 seconds. The other trainees scattered in pure panic. Their training had emphasized individual excellence, not teamwork. Now they ran in different directions, prey animals fleeing a predator. The battle titan caught another trainee, a Krell warrior, and smashed it against the wall with such force that the metal dented. The Krell's 6 limbs went limp. Corton and Sirath tried to attack together using their natural advantages. Corton's forearm struck at the titan's legs while Sirath tried to coil around its torso. The battle titan barely seemed to notice. It grabbed Corton and threw him 30 meters across the chamber. Then it seized Shirath and bent her spine backward until something snapped. Her serpentine body went still, 3 minutes, 5 dead. Only Mirai and Corton remained. Mirai's mind raced. She could not fight this thing. Nobody could. It was too strong, too fast, too relentless. The smart thing to do was run, survive, stay away from it for the remaining 57 minutes. But running would not work. The chamber was large but not infinite. Eventually it would catch them. She needed to think. To observe. To find a weakness. The battle titan charged at Corton, who was struggling to stand. Mirai did something that felt like suicide. She ran toward the titan, screaming, throwing rocks and debris. The titan turned, fixed those mad eyes on her, the easier prey, the weaker target it charged. Mirai ran, but not randomly. She ran in a pattern, forcing the titan to turn, and as it turned, she watched, studied its movements. There, the right hind leg. It favored the left slightly when it turned. An old injury, maybe from before the enhancement process. The stimulants let it ignore the pain, but the mechanical weakness remained, and its breathing. Elevated. Too fast. The stimulants were burning through its metabolism like fire. It was incredibly powerful, but that power came at a cost. Corton, Mirai shouted. "We cannot fight it. We have to outlast it. It will catch us. Not if we are smart." Mirai started using hit-and-run tactics, throwing debris at the Titan, making it chase her, then dodging at the last second. She was slow compared to the Titan, but she was intelligent. She could predict where it would be, anticipate its movements. Cortan understood. He attacked from the opposite side whenever the Titan committed to chasing Mirai, forcing it to turn on that bad leg. 10 minutes passed. 15. The battle Titan was still terrifyingly fast, but it was slowing. Just slightly. The stimulants were consuming its body. 20 minutes. The Titan's breathing was ragged. Its movements fractionally less precise. Mirai kept it moving. Kept it chasing. Kept it burning energy. She took hits, brutal impacts that broke ribs and split skin, but she stayed on her feet. Cortan absorbed damage with his natural armor, using his body to shield Mirai when the Titan got too close. 30 minutes. The Titan was bleeding from dozens of small wounds, not from their attacks, but from its own enhanced body tearing itself apart. The stimulants were destroying it from the inside. 40 minutes. The Titan stumbled. Just once, but it stumbled. Mirai saw her chance. The Titan charged again, going for her because she looked weaker. She did not dodge. Instead, she dropped and slid under its massive body, pulling out the Vrax tooth she still carried. She drove it upward into the soft tissue under the Titan's jaw, the one place she had identified from her anatomical studies as vulnerable. The Vrax tooth, harder than most metals, punched through scale and muscle and kept going. The battle Titan's roar cut off in a gurgle. Its legs gave out. It crashed to the ground, twitching, dying from the stimulants and the wound combined. Mirai rolled away and lay on her back, gasping. Every part of her body hurt. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds. But she was alive. Cortan limped over to her. "We did it," he said, his voice full of disbelief. "We actually did it." The chamber door opened. Ventar walked in, followed by medical personnel. He looked at the carnage. 5 dead trainees, the battle Titan dying on the floor, and 2 survivors, a Drukai and a human. He stopped next to Mirai. She tried to sit up, but her body would not cooperate. "I called you Frail," Ventar said quietly. "When you first arrived, I looked at you and saw weakness. I did not understand. Your species is not strong in the way mine is strong. You do not have natural weapons or armor. You are not fast. You are not resilient in the way we measure resilience." He knelt down, bringing his face level with hers. "But you have something we do not. You refuse to accept defeat even when defeat is the logical outcome. You adapt. You learn. You turn weakness into strategy. And you do not quit." He extended his primary arm in the Drukai gesture of profound respect. "You are Apex Guard Captain Han Mirai." Mirai spent 3 weeks in the medical facility recovering from the Battle Titan trial. Her injuries were extensive: broken ribs, fractured collarbone, torn muscles, and internal bleeding. The doctors said any other species would have taken months to heal. Mirai was walking again in 18 days. Colonel Ventar visited her on the 20th day. She was doing physical therapy, trying to rebuild muscle strength when he entered the room. She immediately tried to stand at attention, but he waved her down. "Rest, Captain. You have earned it." He settled into a chair that groaned under his weight. For a long moment, he simply watched her with those dark, unreadable eyes. "I have been reviewing the trial footage," he finally said. "Do you know what you did wrong?" Mirai blinked in surprise. "Sir? You slid under the battle Titan. The space was approximately 40 centimeters of clearance. If you had misjudged by even 10 centimeters, it would have crushed you." "That was reckless. It was the only vulnerable point I could reach," Mirai said. "I had studied Drukai anatomy for months. The underside of the jaw is the weakest. I know our anatomy, Captain." Ventar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "What surprises me is that you studied it well enough to bet your life on that knowledge. Tell me, how many hours did you spend researching the other species before you arrived?" "All of them, sir. Every hour I had." "Why?" Mirai considered the question. "Because I knew I could not beat you with strength. So I had to beat you with information." Ventar nodded slowly. "That is the difference between humans and most species in the Coalition. We evolved as apex predators. We relied on our natural advantages for so long that we forgot how to think creatively. But humans evolved as prey that learned to hunt. You had to be clever to survive." He stood, towering over her. The Apex Guard graduation ceremony is in 2 days. You and Corton are the only survivors from your cohort. Normally we would have 12 graduates. This year we have 2. I am sorry more did not survive, sir. Do not be. The trial is designed to find the absolute best. You two proved you are worthy. He paused at the door. And Captain? When you return to Earth, tell them this. The galaxy underestimated humanity. We will not make that mistake again. The graduation ceremony was held aboard the Coalition flagship, the same ship where Mirai had first been called Frail. This time representatives from all member species attended. Word had spread about the human who survived Apex Guard training. Everyone wanted to see her. Mirai stood in her dress uniform, freshly pressed and gleaming. Next to her stood Corton, wearing the traditional armor of a Drukai honor guard. They were the only 2 graduates standing alone on the stage while thousands watched. The Coalition High Commander, an ancient Saloth named Vestara, conducted the ceremony. Her scales were silver with age, her movements slow but dignified. Apex Guard training has existed for 3,000 years, Vestara said, her voice amplified through the chamber. In that time, over 50,000 warriors have attempted the trials. Fewer than 2,000 have succeeded. The training is designed to find the absolute best our species can produce. She turned to Mirai and Corton. This year, only 2 candidates completed the training, but these 2 achieved something extraordinary. They did not just survive the Battle Titan trial. They defeated it. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Defeating a Battle Titan was not supposed to be possible. The trial was about survival, not victory. More importantly, Vestara continued, they did it through cooperation. A Drukai and a human working together achieved what neither could have done alone. This is the true strength of the Coalition, not our individual power, but our combined potential. She held up 2 badges, each one made of rare alloy that seemed to absorb light. The Apex Guard insignia. Captain Han Mirai of Earth stepped forward. Mirai walked forward on legs that felt steadier than they had in weeks. Vestara placed the badge on her uniform, then performed the traditional Saloth gesture of respect, touching her forehead to Mirai's. You honor the Apex Guard, Vestara said quietly, and you honor your species. Corton of Drumeth Prime stepped forward. Corton received his badge with visible pride. When Vestara stepped back, he and Mirai stood together, Apex Guard warriors now. The ceremony ended with applause that shook the chamber, but Mirai barely heard it. She was too busy noticing the faces in the crowd. The representatives who had whispered and laughed when she first arrived now watched her with respect. Some with awe, a few with what looked like fear. Good, she thought. Let them be afraid. Let them understand that humans are not to be underestimated. After the ceremony, Commodore Park Ji-hoon found her in the corridor. He was grinning wider than she had ever seen. Well done, Captain. Earth is very proud of you. Thank you, sir. Mirai hesitated. Has there been any fallout? Political issues from the other species? Quite the opposite. Park pulled out a datapad. The Coalition Council has requested 50 human candidates for next year's Apex Guard training. 50, Mirai. They want to see if your success was a fluke or if humans really are this resilient. And what did Earth say? Earth said yes. We are sending our best. Park's expression became serious. But there is more. Colonel Ventar has requested that you remain on Drumeth Prime as an instructor. He wants you to train the next cohort. Mirai felt her stomach drop. Me? Sir, I barely survived the training myself. Exactly. You know what it takes. You know how to turn weakness into strength. Park put a hand on her shoulder. This is a huge opportunity, Mirai. You would be the first human instructor in Coalition military history. The first human to help shape the next generation of elite warriors. What about my duties on Earth? Earth can spare you for a year. Maybe 2. Park smiled. Besides, I think you have proven that one human can make a significant difference. Mirai thought about it. Thought about staying on this brutal world with its crushing gravity and sulfurous air. Thought about teaching aliens who might still see her as weak. Then she thought about the next human who would arrive here, facing the same contempt she had faced. If she could make the training even slightly more fair, more focused on ability rather than assumptions, it would be worth it, I accept, she said. 3 months later, Mirai stood in the same briefing room where Ventar had first called her Frail. But now she stood at the front of the room, wearing her Apex Guard badge and instructor insignia, Before her stood the new cohort. 15 candidates from 10 species, and standing among them were 3 humans. They looked terrified. Mirai remembered that feeling. "I am Captain Han Mirai," she said, her voice carrying through the room. "Some of you may have heard of me. I was the first human to complete Apex Guard training. I am here to help ensure you do not die during the next 6 months." One of the aliens, a massive Thex warrior, made a dismissive sound. "Why should we listen to a human?" "No offense, but you are the smallest being in this room." Mirai smiled. She had been waiting for this. "You are right. I am small. I am weak by your standards. I am slow. I lack natural weapons." She walked toward the Thex. "But I survived the Battle Titan trial. How many of your species can say that?" The Thex fell silent. "Here is what you need to understand," Mirai continued, addressing the whole room. "Apex Guard training will break your body. It will push you past every limit you thought you had. Most of you will quit. Some of you will die. But if you listen, if you learn, if you refuse to give up even when giving up seems smart, you might survive." She looked at the 3 human candidates. They were watching her with desperate hope. "Humans," she said, "you will have it harder than anyone else. The gravity will crush you. The other trainees will mock you. Everything here is designed for species stronger than you. But you have advantages they do not. Use your intelligence. Study everything. Learn their weaknesses. And remember, we are the species that looked at fire and decided to use it. We are the species that hunted mammoths with pointed sticks. We are the species that refused to quit even when the universe said we should." One of the human candidates, a young woman named Lee Nari, raised her hand. "Did it get easier, ma'am?" "After they saw what you could do?" "No," Mirai said honestly. "It got harder. They will push you more because they expect more now. But that is good. It means they stopped seeing us as weak. They started seeing us as dangerous." She let that sink in. "Training begins tomorrow at dawn. Eat well tonight. Sleep if you can. And understand that when you walk onto Drumith Prime's surface tomorrow, your life as you knew it ends. You will be broken down and rebuilt into something stronger. Something the galaxy has never seen before." Mirai smiled. "You will become Apex Guard, and you will make Earth proud." That night, Colonel Ventar found her reviewing training schedules in her office. "I watched your speech," he said. "You sounded almost Drukai, aggressive, intimidating." "I learned from the best, sir." Ventar made that clicking sound that might have been laughter. "I never thought I would say this, but I am glad Earth joined the coalition. Your species brings something we desperately needed." "What is that?" "Perspective." He looked out the window at Drumith Prime's harsh landscape. "We have been the dominant military force for so long that we forgot there are different kinds of strength. You reminded us, and in doing so you made us all stronger." He turned to leave, then paused.